Line's good.
Never on.
Whoa.
Hard. Hardly.
Come on, Brent. Line's good. Got real close.
I hear high, right?
Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Ooh, welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham, Scott alongside, as always. Hello, Scott.
Sean, hello. Usually I have something fun that I think of, but I didn't have time today.
Yeah, it's a busy time around these parts, partly because it is time for my favorite event of the year. That is the Scotties Tournament of Hearts, the Canadian National Women's Curling Championship. It kicks off Friday, February the 14th in Thunder Bay, Ontario at the Fort William Gardens.
Yeah.
So busy time, Scott. This is where we get into the part of our schedule where, it's interesting. Like during the summer, we have a lot of fun doing the shows that we do in the summer, but you have to come up with ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I like doing these ones too. Like we talk previews and then we recap all the games. It's a lot going on, but we just don't really have to come up with that many ideas because we're just talking about what happened. It's more reactive to what's going on.
Yeah. So there's less prep in certain ways, right?
I just showed you how many pages of notes I have here, Scott. Like you could hear my, there you go.
Yeah. I can hear it, but I mean, so for the recaps, I guess, right? We're watching the games, maybe crunching a little bit of numbers, going off sort of off vibes more than anything. How did this event make us feel? All that kind of stuff. But yeah, it gets busy. Like there's so much to talk about and go through. So that's nice. And then some of our good fairy ideas sort of get parked for the summertime. But yeah, like you said, Sean, I'm very excited for this event in particular. I don't know if it's having 2 weekends, an event that is long that you're going to be able to see from the start to the end, vice these Grand Slam events where, it's on for 4 days and you're like, okay, on to the next thing. Yeah. This, I don't know. It's got like a little more gravitas and a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's got time to breathe as well, right? The event sort of plays out slowly and you can see there's enough time for teams to get hot, get cold, and like things can shift Monday, Tuesday from how the first weekend is. So it makes it very interesting. As has been the case the last couple of years, it is the new format for the Scotties. This will be the same at the Briars, where there are 18 teams in play, 2 9-team pools. So there will be an 8-game round robin. The top 3 from each pool move forward. The Vic rule is in effect, so no tiebreakers. If teams are tied, it'll be head-to-head first. If it's a 3-way tie and they've all beaten each other, then it's going to be the last stone draw. That will be the determining factor. On Friday, the first place finishers will cross over and play the second place finishers. The winners of those 2 games will play in the 1-2 game. Losers will go down on Friday night to play the third place teams in an elimination game. The winners of that game get into the 3-4 game into the Page playoffs. A little convoluted, but better than it was when they first introduced this format. So I'm happy about that. The total prize pool up for grabs, $300,000, $100,000 of which goes to the winner, $60,000 for second place, $40,000 for third place, $20,000 for fourth place, $12,500 for fifth and sixth, $6,500 for 7 through 10, $4,500 for 11 through 14, and $2,500 for 15 to 18. So that means, Scott, essentially some of those late games or those late week games between teams that are out of it almost work out to like $2,000 cash games in a couple places.
Yeah, they definitely can be. So there's like incentive still to keep grinding at the end of the week, even if you're out of it, more than just pride on the line. And yeah, this is like a long week. And so, you need some sort of incentive there at the end of the week to keep playing.
Scott, we do this every year as we start these previews. There are are, as I said, 18 teams in the field. Run through them really quick before I ask this question. In Pool A, it is Team Canada, Rachel Homan, Alberta, Selena Sturmey, Alberta, Kayla Skrillick, British Columbia, Northern Ontario, Saskatchewan, New Brunswick, PEI, and Nunavut. In Pool number B, it is Manitoba Anderson, Manitoba Laws, Nova Scotia, Manitoba Kate Cameron, Ontario, Quebec, Northwest Territories, Newfoundland and Labrador, and Yukon. That is the breakdown. We will go through the teams in detail in a minute. But our favorite question to ask at the start of all these previews, Scott, how many teams of 18 do you think have a realistic chance of winning?
So I think this is the lowest number I'm going to say since we've begun this. I think there are 3 teams that can win this event.
And they are?
Rachel Homan, Carrie Anderson, and Krista McCarville.
Yeah, I have those 3 as well. You could talk me into Caitlin Laws.
Yeah, that's the one that I hesitated about. So at most 4, which, you know, we've talked about the women's field on the world level being so deep. Mm-hmm. But it seems like it's a bit of the opposite here in Canada, where Homan and Anderson have just sort of been that much better than everyone else. And I just pulled up the last 2 seasons CTRS rankings.
Yep.
So Rachel Homan's team has 882.5 points. Carrie Anderson has 505.
Wow.
And Caitlin Laws is next at 348. So like Rachel Homan's team is doubling the amount of points earned from the third place team.
More than doubling.
And it's just insane, right? So
yeah. Well, like, when you don't lose games, you get a lot of points.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I think there's going to be a good competition for the playoff spots, or the play in to the playoff spots, the top 3 in each pool. But the number 1 team is sort of pretty much decided already going into this one. I would be shocked if either of those teams weren't the winner of their pool.
Yeah, I agree on that. And I think, though, Scott, one of the things that is going to be interesting to keep an eye on this week, there's not that many rookie skips in the field here, but with, say, Selena Sturmey, Kayla Skrillick, maybe you could throw Caitlin Laws in this category, Corinne Brown, certainly, they're skips who are still young in their skipping career. So the development of these teams, the ability to go back over and over again. Like, think of the Brad Gushu, right? For a long time, he just kept going and continued to get better and evolve into the Brad Gushu, who is Brad Gushu now, right? It took him 20 years basically to get to that point. Or if you say post Olympics, at least it took him 11 years before he won. So it's, I think, a development point where you kind of hope that as we go into this next quad, that these teams that are in there, or the skips who are in their 20s, mid 20s to late 20s, that this is where they start to really gain some traction. And we see the development of the women's game here in Canada in terms of the depth at the highest level. Because if you look at the last couple slams, 2 Canadian teams in the playoffs, and it's the 2 Canadian teams who we expect to win their pools here.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think you're right. There's hope for the future, and I don't say that like these 2 being the top is ruinous for the game or anything. You know, we saw on the men's side Kevin Martin and Glenn Howard in the finals, I think 3 or 4 years in a row. Those events were still very exciting overall, and didn't take away from the young and up and coming teams like the Gushu, like Brad Jacobs, like Kevin Cooey. You know,
well, it took away from Kevin Cooey. He could never get there.
Well, but once he was able to get there, he had been honed already by that Saville Curling Club league championship. So yeah, I think you're right that I'd say it's the future is bright in women's curling. That said, Rachel Homan is 36, I think.
Yeah, she was born in 89, I believe.
So 35 and
35, 36, yeah.
Not going anywhere, right?
No.
So yeah, we've got probably another decade of Team Homan. And so it's something for other teams to shoot at, to aim for, that pinnacle of greatness. But it's going to be tough.
Yeah. But, you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And she is the best right now.
That is correct.
All right. Now, before we get into the teams, and we'll go through all 18 teams, Scott, I was going through the media guide and pulling out some fun little statistics, some nuggets to talk about for each team. And now I don't want you to look at this because I know you have the media guide up there. But the list of MVPs for the Scotties. So there's the all-star teams, but then there's an overall MVP. When do you think the last time a non-skip won the tournament MVP?
Wow.
And you will not be surprised to learn that most of the time, the MVP of the event is the winning skip. It will not surprise you.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. The last time Sean, like a Kim Kelly year, maybe, when we get tired
not quite that far back. There was a rule change based on what this person did.
Oh boy. I don't know. You're going to have to help me out.
Lisa Weigel in 2013.
Interesting.
On the advent or the early point where we're starting to discuss non-tick rules, it's Lisa Weigel in 2013. So she wins. Erin Carmody actually won as the third in 2010 on that Kathy O'Rourke game, which is well-deserved. And certainly, obviously the skip of the winning team. It's pretty easy to make that case. But the one that really stood out to me was in 2011, Amber Holland, where that one really felt like she won the event.
Yeah. She
on her head all week. It was crazy.
Made a lot of shots there that week. Yeah.
All right. So let's go through the pools here. Scott, is there a pool that you think is stronger?
In depth, I think I would slightly lead to pool A being stronger, but like a head to toe, pool A might be a bit deeper.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think so. I might give it though to pool B because at the bottom of the ranking side, when you look at purely on rankings, Carrie Galusha is the 6th ranked team, and we know that she can beat people. Different team this year, of course. And Laurie St. George is the 5th ranked team, and she's had a pretty good run before. So, or excuse me, Carrie Galusha is 7th, Laurie St. George is 6th. So we know that they can do well there. I would say at the bottom of A, in terms of rankings, with Melissa Adams, Jane DiCarlo, Julia Weigel. I don't know. And you never know. I mean, I'm very excited that Nancy Martin is there. Very excited. But I think overall, in past years, we've seen with the way they have to separate out the teams, maybe one pool has been demonstrably or much clearly stronger. I don't think we have that as much this year.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's as much difference. I can see what you mean. I think pool B is a bit deeper. Like if you go further down, you've got a better chance for those teams to win some games than you do probably at the bottom of pool A. But yeah, both are like pretty even. Pool B, all the Manitoba teams ended up in pool B, all the Alberta teams in pool A.
Yep.
So, we've got some fun intra-provincial rivalries that are going to play out in the round robin. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on the pools.
All right. Well, let's go through team by team. We'll start in pool number A, and we will start with the defending champion, as we are going to go based on the CTRS rankings. So this isn't any sort of gut feel by me, purely on CTRS rankings. So we'll start with the defending champions. That is team Rachel Homan in her 11th Scotties, 12th for Emma Miskew, because, of course, Rachel did not participate in the 2022 Scotties, but the rest of the team did. Scott, over under in the 4 Scotties that Rachel Homan has won as a skip, combined, if I said 3.5 losses in those 4 tournaments.
In each of those 4 tournaments?
No, cumulative.
Oh, okay. Well, I know she ran the table in 2014.
Correct.
17. 2014, 2023 last year. She ran
Well,
the
last
table.
year was 2024.
Well, she ran the table last year.
Correct.
She lost, I think, 2 games in 2013.
No.
And
That is incorrect.
Okay, so I'm gonna say that it's just under.
It is. It's 3 total.
3,
She went 12-1 in 2013 and 12-2 in 2017. So 3 losses combined in her 4 Scotties championships. That's pretty doggone impressive. This year they are 45-4. They won the points bet. They won the Pan Continental. They won the Canadian Open. They won the National, amongst other things. When you don't lose games, you win a lot of events. Now, I was going through the statistics, Scott, and I found something quite interesting from last year. So, in the 2024 Scotties, Team Homan was forced with the hammer 26% of the time. They took a single. They scored a multiple 23% of the time. So they actually got forced more often than they scored a multiple, which you wouldn't expect with how good they are and how good they are at generating points. But then you thought, well, okay, but they didn't lose. So something has to sort of account for that. And they stole 23 ends over the course of the week. So they scored a multiple 25 times with the hammer, and they stole 23 times over the course of the week. They scored 90 points in those 11 games, and 39 of them came off steals.
Dang.
That's pretty doggone impressive.
I'll say that's, the name of the game is scoring more points than your opponent, and that's how you're going to do it.
But that just to me says, like, when they have the hammer, they play, and this is, I think, where if we have been critical of the team, this is where we're critical, because we're like, just go score like 3 every time you have the hammer because you're good enough to do it. But they tend to play a little more conservatively, a little more open with the hammer. But then when they don't have the hammer, that's when they're starting to put the pressure on a little more, right? And you're seeing that in the results, that they're getting the steals more so than those multiples. And that's where the strength of the team lies, is if you can get a lead by stealing, get the hammer, and you're up 1 with the hammer, then you can blank play it open. If you need to score, you take your point, fine, whatever. That really seems to be where they're at.
So that's the separator there, is their ability to generate points on steals.
Yeah.
Well,
so last year it was.
Yeah. So we'll see how that plays out, this year coming forward.
Yeah. All right. As we always say, they're really, really good. They're the favorites. So.
Yeah. They'll be there.
All right, next up on the rankings, it is Team Alberta, Selena Sturmey. She made her debut at the Scotties last year, went 8-3 overall, 7-1 though in the round robin, lost to Jennifer Jones in the qualifier for the 1-2 game, and then lost to Caitlin Laws in the qualifier for the 3-4 game. They did, Scott, last year. I was very impressed. They had the last stone in the first end in 10 of their 11 games, which is very impressive. And Scott, for the week, Selena Sturmey, this might not surprise you given the numbers of last stone in the first end they had. Selena Sturmey, 79% on her draw weight. Danielle Schmiemann, 84% on her draw weight. But it was the hits that really let her down. Only 73% on her hits for the week for Selena Sturmey. That's an area where she's going to have to improve in order to not have those late week losses, right? They were great during the week, but tough in the playoffs. And it's that hit percentage that she's going to have to improve. 79-80% draw weight or draw percentage for a skip, that's sustainable. You can win a lot of games with that. It's just on the margins there that hits. You want to bring that up another 5 to 7%, and they're going to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that stood out for me is that, so I look a lot at Ken Palm's doubletakeout.com. And Selena Sturmey is the second team in the CTRS points on this pool. That's right.
Yeah.
That's what you said. She's 30th in the world on Ken Palm's rankings. And what stands out, 3-11 against teams in the top 10 this year. 2-8 against teams 11 through 25.
Okay.
So a lot of the damage has been done on teams lower down in the rankings than them. And I think they're going to need to get their hit percentage up to be able to compete at the higher against the better teams.
Yeah, especially in young teams, this is always a learning curve that you see. Even like dial down the weight sometimes. Make sure you keep your shooter in play. Like those little things that come with time and experience. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back after obviously a tough finish last year. But again, 7-1 in that round robin. So certainly a threat to make the playoffs. All right, let's move on to Alberta Skrlik. And it is Kayla Skrlik making her second appearance at the Scotties, 4-4 back in 2023, alongside Margot Fleming, new addition to this team, her fifth Scotties, of course, all those years. Up in the north with Carrie Galusha, Aston Skrlik, and Jerry Lynn Ramsey are the front end. 51-20 on the season. That is a lot of games. They lost the final of the points bet to Rachel Homan, did not qualify in the Masters, their lone Grand Slam on the season, Scott, for this team. A couple of years ago, they had a really good start to the week and couldn't quite sustain it. Part of that was just the schedule luck that they had in terms of when they played people. But a young team, can they grow? A lot of experience there with Margot Fleming. It'll be interesting to see how they build on that. And based on the pool, could, I think, a threat to make the playoffs, but they're going to have a tough time doing so potentially.
Yeah, I actually like them a little better than Team Sturmey as a shot to make the playoffs. They had that experience last year, and just it sort of seems like Kayla herself handles situations really well, like the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like seeing that from her. They'll have Shannon Kleibrink on the bench, a lot of experience there as their coach. So I think this is going to be good for them. And Margot Fleming stepping in, adds again a little bit more experience. So I really like this team's chances to make the playoffs.
Now, you mentioned the coaching situation there. Obviously, a lot of experience on the bench. Should note, we missed it. Jennifer Jones is going to coach Team Homan this week as well. So
yeah, I had to check the date when I saw that to see if it was April 1st already.
All right, let's move on to the left coast, British Columbia. It is Corinne Brown making her fourth appearance at the Scotties, 4-4 last year at this event, along with Erin Pincott, Sarah Colton, the new addition to the team, and Samantha Fisher. Last year, Scott, they were plus 14 in the point differential, despite going 4-4. And that is because they got a lot of threes. They scored 7 threes, only gave up 1. And they were able to generate those points. So that put them in pretty good stead, but lost those close games. So they blew out a few teams, but lost the close ones. Interesting on the schedule here for them. They start with Sturmey, then Skrlik, then Saskatchewan, Northern Ontario, Nunavut, Canada, New Brunswick, PEI. If they can get through to the New Brunswick PEI games at 3-3, I think they're in the playoffs, because I think 5-3 gets it.
Definitely. That seems to be where they need to be to get there. What I think has held them back has been Corinne herself not being able to sort of get really dialed in and focus for those last big shots. Like you said, it was the close games where they tend to be dropping.
Mm-hmm.
And more experience for Corinne being in these moments just gives her more reps and more chance to sort of get under control and make the shots that we all know she can make. So I think it's going to be really key to get through the gauntlet of the schedule, at least at 3-3.
Yeah, I totally agree. So it'll be fun to see. Corinne can make some great shots. I remember there was a game, I think it was in the bubble. It was a morning game, and she just shot the lights out. So she's got it in her, right? Like she can get there. And the more experience at this event, more experience on the arena ice will only do her better. And the BC Provincials this year was in a bigger space than normally. So, or that it has been in the past. So I think that bodes well for them coming into the week. All right, let's move on, Scott, to the home team. the literal home team this time, not just the home province. It is in their home city. It is Northern Ontario, and Krista McCarville, along with Andrea Kelly, Kendra Lilly, Ashley Sipola, and Sarah Potts. 12th appearance for Krista McCarville at the Scotties. 4-4 last year. Very disappointing for them. They missed the playoffs on the draw shot challenge. It was 3 teams at 4-4, all beat each other, but draw shot challenge, they did not get through. The real heartbreaker for this team last year, Scott, was in draw 13 against Selena Sturmey. They were up 7-3 after 6 ends. Then Selena Sturmey got 2, steal a 1, steal a 3. They got 2 in the 10th end, but then it was an extra end win for Selena Sturmey. So that's a game that you look back at and think, oh, well, they might have been in the playoffs other than that. But last year, Krista McCarville was only 69% on her draws for the week. That is not good enough. Obviously, it's because they didn't get through, but also surprising because that's where Krista McCarville tends to be able to bail out her team sometimes. Now they play very open. They're not a team that likes to mix it up too much. They're not scared of a blank end. They're not scared of a low scoring game. You know, Suzanne Burt, she is not in this in the way that she approaches her strategy. But she needs to be able to have that draw weight and be confident in the draw weight. It wasn't just that she was missing a lot of draws last year. It was that you could tell she wasn't confident in it. And it, I think, got into how they played some of the games, some of the strategy calls that they made which were maybe different from what they normally would have done because she did not have that draw weight in her back pocket.
Yeah. And I think that a bit of that comes back to, you know, getting more familiarity with the new lineup. So having Andrea being there at third, a little more time to get used to Krista and Krista being able to get the information that she needs from her. That's to me, the key to her unlocking her potential and getting back onto the podium.
And they'll have the crowd behind them. There will be a lot of moose calls this week. So it'll also be important for them to tune that out. And we saw it with Brad Gushu. This is maybe as close as we're ever going to get to that. Maybe just because it is in Thunder Bay. And you saw it maybe a little bit last year with McEwen, but that's just always the case in Saskatchewan, that they're going to cheer whoever's wearing the green really loud. This is like the home team. Like, it's not just they're the ones who are representing Northern Ontario, which I feel like Gushu has that in Newfoundland, and Chris McCarville has that in Thunder Bay. So that rare connection with the crowd. So they're going to have to be able to kind of set that aside, and especially when you get into draws and stuff, don't overkick or don't oversweep, don't pound them too early, like don't cook them. So we'll see how they respond to that.
Yeah. And we saw them play really well in this arena 3 years ago, getting all the way to the final, losing that heartbreaking game. So I'd expect them to come out strong. They're going to have to. They've got a pretty tough early schedule. Their games that they're expected to win are all at the end of the week against Nunavut, PEI, and New Brunswick. So they're going to need to play well early. And if they can do that, harness the support of the crowd, they have a chance to win this event.
Absolutely. I believe Saturday night is Northern Ontario against Canada. Just going to pencil that one in as the TV game. Just... and I think is it Nancy Martin they have first?
Yeah.
So that, and just in looking at what the matchups are on Friday night, that might be the TV game Friday night as well. So, but definitely Saturday night at them in Canada. That's the TV game.
Call it first.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the aforementioned Nancy Martin. Surprisingly, making only her second appearance at the Scotties. I feel like we talk about her way more than somebody who's only been now to two Scotties, partly because her first Scotties was iconic.
Yes.
With the greatest power pose photo of all time that I might put as the little avatar for this episode. If I can
definitely do it, Sean. It's her staring daggers and pointing directly at the camera.
Yep.
Amazing. It does feel like she must have been here more often just because of that.
Absolutely. So it is Nancy Martin along with Shaylin Stewart, Kadriana Lott making her Scotties debut, and Deanna Doig, who is the veteran on the team along with Nancy Martin. The team is 23-21 on the season. They had a very interesting path in the Saskatchewan provincials. They lost the 1-2 game to Jolene Campbell, and then just for fun, just to give the people what they want, won the semifinal 15-8.
A lot of points in that game. I remember watching that.
Yeah, and then beat Jolene Campbell in the final 9-7, and they are here. Scott, I don't think they're necessarily a threat to win this event, but Nancy Martin is a lot of fun to watch. Should be entertaining. Hopefully, a couple TV games. And when we're talking about, again, building the future, it's not just at the skip position. Shailene Stewart, Kadriana Lott, those are two young players in their 20s who, again, get that experience, get the reps in, and hopefully turn the page here in Saskatchewan curling. As for as much as we love Nancy Martin and as much as we love Sherry Henderson, who's going to be there as the coach, these young teams coming out of Saskatchewan, we need them to have some success and to grow. So I think that's why I really like the lineup, that you have Nancy Martin, Deanna, Sherry. They can take the younger players, get them through the week, and show them the ropes.
Yeah, and get them sort of set to be the next generation of Saskatchewan curling. So I agree with you. I think they're a high variability team.
Yeah.
Just based on the style that Nancy likes to play and the sort of fearlessness with which she plays, and it's like live or die based on how she's playing. So, if she has a bad day and they lose 2 games, like that can happen just as easily as they can, play above their heads and win 2 games.
Absolutely. So that'll be a fun team to watch. Another team that should be fun to watch, it is New Brunswick and Melissa Adams. She is making her fourth appearance at the Scotties. Was the skip last year, went 2-6 alongside Jacqueline Crandall, Kayla Russell, and Kendra Lister. Kayla Russell is a change on this team at the second position. The other 3 played last year. They've had a really good season, Scott. They're 20-5, went undefeated through the New Brunswick playdowns. If we're looking at where we would want to see some statistical improvements from last year, talked about it with Krista McCarville on draw weight. Melissa Adams was only 56% on her draws last year. The team was only 71% on their draw weight. They gave up 26 steals in their 8 games. That is not good, and that is how you end up at 2-6. To be honest. Yeah. So, but they're gonna have, and Russ talks about this all the time, East Coast teams coming to these events, different conditions, faster ice, a lot more curl. Hopefully for them, they can pick up the weight a little earlier and play some tighter games and keep people on their toes, because 56% for Melissa and 71% draws overall, that's not going to be good enough to even really be in a lot of games.
For sure. And Sean, we have to point out with this team touched by tragedy, just about a week ago, Kendra Lister, her husband Daniel, passed away unexpectedly on February 2nd. So for this team, they did make the decision, hey, we're going to go as a team. Kendra's going to come with us. But I think for them just being able to be together and play games and sort of put a little bit of that out of their minds for a little bit, it's going to be really good. So real tough situation for the team as a whole and for Kendra especially, but I just hope that the Scotties can provide something to her as she's going through this period of grief. And so whether they win, whether they lose, I think what it's all going to be about is being together as a team and, getting to do the thing that you really love to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very well said, Scott. And I think all the communities across the country would certainly rally behind this team. Definitely the case in Thunder Bay as well. That I think the crowd will rally behind them. Certainly the other players will. Sometimes when we talk about like the Vic essay and that and some of the words he uses and does at the end of the week, that sometimes maybe it's a little over the top, but there's a truth to it is a very good and supportive community, the curling community that we have in this country. So certainly would expect it there for Kendra. And yeah, certainly send all of our best to her and her family and the whole team.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to Prince Edward Island and Jane DiCarlo. She, of course, skipped last year in her debut, went 0-8. Alongside this year, Veronica Main, Sabrina Smith, and Whitney Jenkins. The great Kathy O'Rourke is there as the coach. That's always fun to see Kathy O'Rourke. 10-5 so far on the season, undefeated through the PEI playdowns. Last year, I found this somewhat interesting, Scott. They gave up 13-3 or more ends last year. That's a lot in 8 games. Mm-hmm. They played very aggressively. They threw, for the course of the week, 341 draws compared to 238 hits. So about 100 more draws to hits. For context, Selena Sturmey threw 441 draws, 397 hits. They played more games. That's why the numbers are out of whack. But proportionally, like 52, 53% roughly of draws to hits, whereas Jane DiCarlo and her team were more, over 60% draws. So that's in a very aggressive style, leaving a lot of rocks in play. We've talked about it before. When you're lower ranked in the field like this, maybe you want to keep it open, really make the other teams be more patient. Don't mix it up too much and take opportunities where you can. So I do wonder if they're going to be a little more balanced this year and try to play a few more hits, keep it more open.
Yeah, that's one way to go. The other way is to just lean into it, right, and play more draws. But I think for a team that's not as experienced, I've said this a lot before, that your best way is to stay close. And the best way you stay close is to not give up 3 or more. If you end up giving up a 2 because you hit and roll out, that's fine. Just try to not give up 3, especially until you get your legs under you. So that'll be a really cool thing to track this week to see if that percentage becomes a little more even as the week goes on.
All right, and the final team in Pool A, it is Nunavut, and Julia Weigel will be skipping this team. She is making her Scotties debut alongside Sadie Pinkston in her 6th, Lee Gustafson, who is an alternate in 2023, and Allison Taylor in her 3rd. So Julia Weigel, as the skip, is the rookie on this team. She is, of course, the import. She is local to Ottawa here. That name might sound familiar to you. We mentioned Lisa Weigel as the last non-skip All-Star. This is Lisa Weigel's sister. So Ted will be there in full force. Going to have to do every draw, Ted, because they're not in the same pool. So, you got to go on the Kathy schedule. That's what you need to do.
Exactly. I mean, well, maybe Lisa won't play every game, but and I think she will. But tough go for Ted there.
Yeah, so this team got through uncontested in the Nunavut playdowns. Of course, Nunavut did not send a team to the Scotties last year. Good to have them back in the field. Not the greatest draw schedule, I think, Scott, for them. They got the draw 1 bye, which you never really like, especially, I think, for a rookie skip. There's going to be the nerves, the juice is going. You just want to get out there and start, and then you got to, even like, because it's the night before, like, if it was a morning bye and you play that night, okay, it's just a few hours. But now she's got to wait another full day, right, from Friday night to Saturday night to get that first game in. Play Selena Sturmey first, and then it's New Brunswick and PEI. And if you were going based on the rankings, you'd expect New Brunswick and PEI to be the 2 win opportunities for this team. If you're Julia Weigel and the team, maybe you want them a little later in the week when you have a better sense of the ice. But see how that goes for them. But again, I think it's great to have Nunavut back in the field. Good for Julia to make it to the Scotties here and have some experience around them. Colin Hodgson is going to be the coach, one of the more positive people in the sport, just always out there having a good time, loves the sport. So it'd be good, I think, to have him there for this team as well.
Yeah, I'm happy for Julia to be able to go to the Scotties. It's going to be a fun time. And I hope that's what they do, like embrace the whole thing, soak it in, all that stuff. Should be really, really fun.
All right, so that is Pool A. Let's move over to Pool number B. Scott, top-ranked team here is Carrie Anerson. It's Manitoba Anerson. 8th appearance for Carrie here. 7-3 last year. Technically missed the playoffs. I didn't get through the Friday. That was a bold prediction that was successful for us. They are 26-17 on the season. Of course, though, the news for this team is the lineup change. Carly Burgess is in. Kristen Karwecki is in. So the front end that we've had for the 4 championships is not there this year. Injury and, of course, the suspension. So a new look lineup for Carrie Anderson this year. Val Sweeting's still there at the 3rd position. But I think, Scott, the question for this team is they've played a couple events now with Carly Burgess. I think actually just the one event, and then practice time with Carly Burgess. Kristen Karwacki was there last year and has played pretty much all this season. But the question is, how do they all come together, and can they figure out this permutation of the team that has been together now only for a couple weeks?
Yeah, it's really hard to have somebody come into the team so late in the process. Carly is such a great player that, it becomes easier when you're such a great rock thrower and so clean with the release and everything. But it's another variable, right? And when you're a team trying to play at the highest level, you want as few variables as possible in the equation. So yeah, I mean, they've definitely got the talent to do it. They've got the pedigree to be able to do it. It's just going to be about how this week comes together. And like I said at the beginning, I'd still be shocked if they didn't win this pool, but we'll see.
Indeed, we will. It's going to be, like you say, very interesting to see how it goes for them. And I think just, obviously last year, Brianne Harris gets suspended the day of the Scotties, the day it starts. So you kind of give them a pass on last year. It's not they were bad last year. They won 7 games. That's not bad by any means. Mm-hmm. So you give them a pass on that. But it's a question here of, how can they come together? Or even just as the relief of having the Brianne Harris situation now resolved. She's not there, of course, but the situation is resolved. I'm sure they have a path of what they're going to do moving forward set. So just having that relief is good. And knowing, obviously, Shannon Bircher, you'd like her to be there, but now too, because early in the season, there was that uncertainty about her knee. Now, okay, she's not coming back this season. She'll go, she'll rehab. Hopefully she'll be in top form by the time we get to next season, and we can assess at that point what's happening. But now, this is the team for the rest of the year. Let's get into it. Let's play this event. And we have no real other distractions.
Yeah, which is going to be putting them in a better position than they were in last year.
All right, let's go on then to the teams that will be challenging them for those playoff positions. Let's start with Manitoba Laws. And it is the 11th appearance for Caitlin Laws at the Scotties. 4-4 last year. They did qualify for the 2-3 game to try and get to the 3-4 game. And they lost, though, in that round to Selena Sturmey. This season, they are 24-23. Best result is a semifinal appearance at the Tour Challenge. Last year, they gave up 14 twos and 11 steals in those 8 games. That's not great defensive play. They did get 6 threes themselves. So a lot of rocks in play, very aggressive. Of course, Caitlin Laws, after her very successful junior career, spent a lot of time with Jennifer Jones, who mixed it up for sure. That's the game that Jennifer Jones liked to play. That's the game that Caitlin Laws really, when she entered the women's game, that's what she was playing. So not really a surprise to see those numbers, but I do wonder if maybe they would benefit from pulling it back just a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's some sage advice, right? And the last couple of years, it's been a bit tricky as they've been playing between pregnancies of, I think Jocelyn, Selena, and Caitlin have all been pregnant at some point in the last couple of years. And so haven't been able to play a full year schedule, all of them together on the same team, getting them on the same page. So probably the results haven't been what we expected when this team was formed, but I think they're in that what do we call it? Storming, forming, norming, then performing. They're probably still in that storming or that forming and then storming stage where they're really trying to figure it out. So they absolutely have all the talent in the world. They can make all the shots. It's just going to be about putting it together at the right time. Caitlin is one of the best shot throwers in the world, and I definitely think it's possible. So, I mean, yeah, I think if they missed the playoffs this year, it would be more of a surprise than what they did last year.
No, I totally agree that, all the talent in the world here for this team. So would expect them to get it together, but get it together. That sounds harsh, but like have better results.
Come together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sean, fun fact. I was reading the media guide. Did you know Caitlin Law's occupation is a farmer?
I did not know that.
Good for her.
Yeah.
I don't remember the last time I saw farmer in the media guide. So
no. Yeah. Good on her.
Cool.
So next year in those tractor commercials, Caitlin Law should be in them.
Yeah. A real farmer.
Yeah. And a curler.
Amazing.
There you go. We just wrote the commercial. There you go. Coyote. We'll take
You're
our
welcome.
Cut.
We'll wait for the check.
Yeah. All right. Next up is Team Nova Scotia. Christina Black making her 6th appearance at the Scotties. 7-5 last year. Or excuse me, 7-5 in 2023, which was her last appearance at the Scotties. Of course, made the playoffs that year. Changed from that team, though. Jill Brothers is with her playing 3rd. Jennifer Baxter, Carly Everest also on the team. Christina Black is the reigning Canadian mixed curling champion, playing 3rd with Owen Purcell. This team has been on a heater all year. Maybe the second hottest team in the country after Rachel Homan. 43-9 on the season. Won the Tier 2 of the Tour Challenge. Got to the quarterfinals of the National. They have won 4 titles so far on the season, Scott. And not always in the top level events, not going too far outside of the East Coast of the country. But there's something to be said for going out and winning games and having success. And that's what this team has done this year.
Sean, you've talked to me a lot about the 2024-25 Toronto Raptors.
Yes.
Having their players play and learn how to win. There's really something to be said for that. You know, you hear all this talk about, we got to tank and get a draft pick. No. You want players who understand what it takes to win.
Yep.
And this is a case where this Christina Black team understands what it takes to win. Maybe they haven't played against the top teams in the world, but like you said, they've won a lot of games.
Yeah.
And if I look here at the doubletakeout.com, Christina Black's number 16, they're the number 5 team in Canada based on these rankings. 4 wins against teams in the top 10. That's more than Kayla Skrlik. That's more than Chelsea Carey, who's not going to be there. It's more than Krista McCarville. More than Kate Cameron. So, you know, their results are there.
Yeah.
And once you start winning, you just sort of get this sort of routine, right? It becomes more routine to win and you expect to win. And a big challenge when you come to an event where maybe you're not seen as one of the big teams, and like, us playing in the A division on Monday nights is a small sort of comparison, is that if you think you can win, then you have a greater chance of winning.
Yeah.
So I really like this Christina Black team. They're going to go in with a lot of confidence. They've been to the playoffs before and they're winners.
Yeah. I agree. I love this team. And the idea or the eternal question of, do you get good and then start to win, or do you win and then get good? And what comes first? And sometimes you just sort of start winning, and then maybe we are good, and you sort of realize they have skill and talent. And I think Yeah, you mentioned the Raptors. Before anybody yells at me, just look up the last time a number 1 overall pick won the championship with the team that drafted them. That's all I'll say about that. So let's move on, Scott, in basketball. I don't know about the other sport, but basketball. All right, let's move on because we are high on Christina Black. Another team that I think can do some damage here. Your 2024 bronze medalist, Kate Cameron. So it's Manitoba Cameron here, along with Taylor McDonald, Brianna Cullen, and Mackenzie Elias. Mackenzie Elias is the only holdover from last year. Brianna Cullen is making her debut at the Scotties. So far on the season, 36-21. They won their last event, which was the Women of the Rings in January, went undefeated through that event. Glenn Howard is going to be on the bench for them this season, or this week. Last year, Scott, they gave up 5 threes and a 5. So overall, they gave up 24 multiples, only scored 20 multiples, but had 20 steals for and only 10 steals against. So again, this speaks to a lot of rocks in play, very aggressive, where you're giving up a lot of multiples, but you're also stealing a lot. So it's finding that balance of when do you go for it? When do you really push for that steal? When do you rein it back in because you don't want to give up those multiple scores? Finding that balance is going to be key. But the difference, I think, for Kate Cameron compared to some other teams that we've talked about with that balance, certainly Jane DiCarlo, is that Kate Cameron has the high weight shot. One of the better like high weight throwers in the country, I think. So she has the run back with a little more consistencies than some other players. So that aggressive style, she can get away with it maybe a bit more than others, but still, I think, picking her spots.
Yeah, she's going to be able to bail out when needed. And she's got Taylor McDonald throwing third, who can also throw the big hits.
Yep.
It's been a long time second. So yeah, I mean, I think this team is very good. I don't know if they're greater than the sum of their parts, but the parts are pretty good. So you put everything together, they're going to be there. I was surprised when you said that they were the third place team last year. That surprised me. I didn't really remember that they did so well last year. So yeah, maybe one of these under the radar teams.
All right, next up is Team Ontario, skipped by Danielle Inglis, who was a fun story last year that she got to her first Scotties, had a great social media post when she won this year because she, of course, does social media for Curling Canada. And her post was something like, hey, anybody need a social media gig for a week in February? That's what she posted. Same team as last year with Kira Brunton, Calissa Daly, and Cassandra DeGroot. They did go 3-5 last year, 24-23 on the season. Danielle Scott really thrives on the soft weight stuff. She's very much a finesse player versus the high hard one. Last year, though, only 70% on the draw weight. So if she can get that up to 80% or in that range, I think she has a chance to be a playoff threat, but it's really going to depend on how she picks up the draw weight.
Yeah, and when we talk about Skip's draw percentages, it's all based on how difficult those shots are, right? So if your teammates can set you up for easier draws, then you have a higher chance to make them and shoot a better percentage. So yeah, she's going to have to do a little better with that, but at the same time, her team's going to need to put her in a position that makes it easier.
All right, another skip that's going to need some more support than what you got last year. It is Quebec and Laurie St. George, her 5th consecutive appearance at the Scotties. Jamie Sinclair in at the 3rd position, Emily Riley, and the addition to the team is Lisa Weigel throwing the lead stones. They went 4-4 last year. They're 22-13 on the season, went undefeated through the Quebec playdowns. Last year, Laurie St. George was 69% on her draws, 74% on her hits. Again, you're going to want to see those numbers higher, especially the draw weight. They only had 8 multiple scores for in the course of their 8 games and gave up 12 steals. So that is not a good ratio and certainly accounts for that 4-4 record. I do wonder, Laurie St. George, of course, and Felix Asselin stopped playing mixed doubles this year to focus on the 4-person game. I do wonder if that is going to reflect in her strategy, because I've always felt that she very much played a mixed doubles type strategy, which is very entertaining to watch. Lots of rocks in play, always come around. Let's do that. Now, by focusing on the 4-person game and with Jamie Sinclair, who of course has skipped the USA at the Worlds before. And I've always felt that Jamie she wasn't a player who would just keep it wide open, but I always felt that she was judicious, especially remember in that North Bay Worlds playing Jennifer Jones, and Jennifer was just, let's lob him up there. Let's play. And Jamie, she didn't not engage, but she picked her spots as when she felt comfortable and was ready to engage. So I do wonder if that might rub off a bit here on Laurie St. George, if we see a bit of a change in how she's calling the game.
Yeah, not take the bait, sort of. Of going in all the time. Yeah, I think this team is good enough, Sean, to be challenging for that third spot out of the group. So because of that, I think they're really going to need to focus on that draw shot challenge numbers, making sure that they're really dialed in when they're throwing their draws and being as high up in those rankings as they can be. Because if it does come to a tie break, you want to really have that in your back pocket to fall back on.
All right, next up is Carrie Galusha, returning to the Scotties, perhaps somewhat unexpectedly after last year. And the team was very clear that was the last time that they were going to play in the Scotties together. But Carrie Galusha is back playing in her 74th Scotties for her. Just kidding, of course, the 18th for Carrie Galusha. Little known fact, Scott, she was actually the 5th for Vera Pezzer on those back-to-back championships. But she was alongside Megan Kohler, who is back for Scotties for her since 2018. Shona Barber is at the lead position, her 8th Scotties, first one since 2021 in the bubble. But the story of this team, Scott, is Sydney Galusha making her Scotties debut. This is her 3rd national level event. She played in the 2023 U18, the 2024 juniors. But Scott, she was born when the year I graduated from the University of Regina and with my master's degree. She is 15 years old.
After the iPhone, she's post iPhone, Sean.
Yeah, youngest player to ever play in the Scotties. Not just like in terms of 2009, but like at the age where they were playing, that's the youngest person.
Yeah, we saw that a couple of years ago with Newfoundland, Labrador on the men's side. But this is an awesome story, right?
Yeah.
Mother gets to play with her daughter at the national championships. We just sort of love that story. We saw Jim Cotter playing with his daughter at the mixed doubles trials. That was really fun. I think this is the kind of thing that you've retired. You say, oh, this is my last one. This is the kind of thing you come out of retirement for, and you say, oh, well, let's try and make it. Why not? And sure enough, here they are coming back again. So good for them. I think they're going to have a lot of fun, and they're good enough that they're going to give teams a game. And Rachel Homan is happy that they're not in the same pool.
That's very true. Yes. Carrie Galusha has a very good record against Rachel Homan. But yeah, this is cool. And it's really cool to see Shona Barber back, Megan Kohler back, like having them back. This is going to be a lot of fun. And I know that they've stopped doing the midweek Vic essays. I want this to be a Vic essay, right?
Yeah,
this should be a Vic essay. So it'd be very cool. Or even, I know Carrie Galusha is, I don't know exactly what her role in the Sandra Schmirler Foundation is, but she's a part of that in an official capacity. Do that on Sunday during the telethon, something with the two of them, even if it's just like a interview or something during the fifth end break to highlight the mother-daughter connection. And I don't know. There's just this is such a cool story that I'm very happy for this team.
Yeah, Sean, I got an email from Carrie Galusha the other day asking me to donate to the Sandra Schmirler Foundation. So
yeah,
there you go.
They are. I don't know when it ends, but they were doing like a double the contribution thing. Like there was a matching going on.
Yeah.
So Yes, and the telethon is on Sunday. I usually, this is the stupidest thing I do on an annual basis. I wait until like the 8th end of the night game before I do the donation, because I want to wait till they're close to what the goal is.
So that you can be the one that puts them over the top.
Yeah, and I always want Vic to be like, well, this donation from Sean Graham put us over the top. Like, it's so stupid, because he's never once actually named a donor. But in my head, like, well, if I wait, I'll maybe this year. But yeah, so certainly a worthy cause, the Sandra Schmirler Foundation, neonatal care across the country. So the telethon will be on Sunday. All right, Scott, 2 more teams left in the field to talk about. Let's start with Newfoundland and Labrador, a rookie here. It is Brooke Godsland. She is alongside Erin Porter, making her 6th appearance, Sarah McNeil Lambswood, and Camille Burt. Camille Burt is the holdover from last year's team. She played lead. Sarah McNeil Lambswood won the silver at the 2023 Canadian Juniors at the 3rd position. This is overall a very young team. Erin Porter is the oldest player at 35 years old, so a young team here. Potentially a chance for some growth here in Newfoundland and Labrador. They're 10-7 on the season, went 5-1 in the provincials. I think this is a team that go in, have a good time, get your legs under you, figure out what sort of these events are all about, and if you can grow, build, maybe you get back. Who knows? But it's fun when rookies are there.
Yeah, no doubt. And Sean, do you think this is a typo in the media guide? We're gonna have to get on the horn with Kyle and Al? Under years curled for Brooke Godsland, it says she's curled for 2 years. Do you think it should be 20?
Or she just really picked it up. She went to a Learn to Curl. Maybe Greg Smith brought her out to a Learn to Curl, and she just picked it up just like that.
Well, I mean, she was at the junior championships in 2017 and 2016. So
those were the 2 years that she curled. Otherwise, she hasn't played. Yeah,
maybe
just a total natural.
But yeah, it's always fun to see young teams, and Erin Porter will be there as like the one who's been there before and done it, show them what to do, all that kind of stuff. Should be fun. I hope they're able to pick up a win.
Yes, me too. All right, final team to talk about here, Scott. It is Team Yukon. Bailey Scoffin making her 2nd appearance, debuted last year at the Scotties, went 1-7 alongside Carrie Foster, Raylan Helston, Bailey Hortze. She is new to the team, is Bailey. That is the only change from last year. Kimberly Tour is the alternate. Scott, Raylan and Bailey, after the Scotties last year, a lot was made during the event that they were going to go off to the collegiate championships, and they did that, and they won a silver medal at the Canadian Collegiate Championship. So good job for them. Scott, they're the only team last year during the week that had a points against per end over 1. So going to have to be a little bit better at that. Gave up 18 steals in the 8 games last year, but this is not really about winning the Scotties for this team. It is about the growth development. Bailey, the 2 Baileys and Raylan are very young players, so chance to develop, to grow, see what happens. Of course, going to school there in Alberta, so see what happens as they get into the women's game if they want to play. But we saw that with Thomas Scoffin, of course, her brother, who had great success at the junior level, went to school in Alberta, and then went back to Yukon and basically shows up at the Briar every year and gives people games, wins a couple games, and seems to be enjoying it. So see what Bailey wants to do, but certainly the talent is there, just not quite the experience yet.
Yeah, exactly. Just keep building for this Yukon squad. That's the goal.
All right, so there you have it. The 18 teams that are heading to beautiful Thunder Bay, Ontario. Hopefully they can all get there as scheduled and planned, with a bit of a blast of winter weather certainly coming to parts of central and eastern Canada later this week. Scott, do you think anyone's going to have their travel plans adjusted based on this storm that's coming in?
Well, I don't think it's going to be a ton of snow for Toronto, and really, Toronto is the only airport that matters. Like that
In terms
sounds.
of getting to Thunder Bay, you are correct. Yes.
In terms of getting anywhere, it's it really only is Toronto. I suppose they could have some people that have to fly to Winnipeg and drive, but not even. It's all going to be Toronto, and so Toronto should be okay. Most of the teams will be there Wednesday because I think practicing happens Thursday and Friday. So if you're there Wednesday, should be fine. No big deal. Thursday is when the big blast of snow comes. It'll sort of be Wednesday evening for Toronto, but only about 15 centimeters is what I'm seeing right now. Could be a bit more, but that's my prognostication.
All right. Well, with that, let's get into some more prognostication. The dumbest thing we do every year is try to pick these things because, well, we're not good at it. And, my crystal ball, sadly, is in the shop still, but I'll give it a try here, Scott. As we are wont to do, let's go playoffs and your champion. Who do you got?
Okay, so we're not picking top 3 in the pools, hey?
No, let's just do playoffs.
Real playoffs.
Yeah. Page playoffs.
So,
who's in the page?
So who's in the page? So obviously I said Anderson and Homan are the 2 teams that I really think can win. We talked so much about Christina Black. Give me Christina Black. And then that third team, let me look at pool A, whatever, hometown, Northern Ontario.
Okay. Now those are the 4 that I had written down as well. So let me just, for the fun of changing things up, give me Kayla Skrillik in the playoffs. Canada and Manitoba Anderson, yes. Give me Skrillik as well. I really do like Krista McCarville. Actually, I'm picking Krista McCarville to win. So
okay.
So I have to have them in the play. I can't pick them not to make the playoffs and yet still have them to win. That's kind of how that works. So I'll swap out Christina Black for Kayla Skrillik just to be different.
Okay, and I'm going to pick Rachel to win. Gulf between them and the other teams in the last 2 years has been quite a lot, and I feel like I would be dumb to pick somebody else.
All right, so there you have it. Our full preview of the 18 teams. The games will be 9, 2, and 7 p.m. Eastern time. You can figure out what that is in your time zone. I won't Brian Williams you on that one. But of course, all games on TSN here domestically. I don't know what's happening internationally. Last year, they geo-blocked the game so that they could be streamed, I believe, on the Curling Canada YouTube page or wherever. But they geo-blocked Canada for that. And so everybody else could watch them. Hopefully that's the case again. I think people have been asking, it might be out on social media. If I see it, I will put it on our Blue Sky as to where you can find it internationally if it is going to be streamed. But hopefully you can, and we'll figure it all out. But certainly in Canada, all the games available on TSN, kicking off, as I say, Friday night at 7 p.m. No game Saturday morning, then 2 and 7 on a Saturday, and then the full draw schedule all the way through till Thursday. Then we get the pre-playoffs, and then the real playoffs start on Saturday, final Sunday night. So that is the schedule. Very excited for it, and we will be with you during the week, but also afterwards to recap all the goings on. So please do subscribe if you have not yet, wherever you get your podcasts. Like, rate, comment, all the good stuff helps other people find the show, keeps us growing. You can head on over to GameOfStonesPod.com. All of our past episodes are there, plus a link to the merch. And you can let us know what you want to hear on the show, GameOfStonesPodcast@gmail.com. We're on the socials at Game of Stones Pod. I'm going to be tweeting. See, that it's like it's a verb now, even though it's not the name of the website. I'm going to be tweeting on Blue Sky. I'll be posting on Blue Sky, or skeeting.
Yes.
On Blue Sky. Yes, that sounds really, I don't care for that. I will be putting things on Blue Sky. I will engage and watch the games on Blue Sky over the course of the week. But on the other socials, we're Game of Stones Pod, Game of Stones Podcast on Facebook. Scott, it is a fun week. We really do enjoy it, but I'd be remiss if I did not point out to the people that our game on Monday nights, you made the game saver of all game saver shots So I will leave you the floor to extol your own virtues.
Oh, wow. Extol my virtues.
How great of a shot that was.
Lucky for me, Sean. Lucky for me. I would say last night's game was a game where there was a lot of misses, me included, and we made fewer misses. But I did make one shot that we really had to make in order to save the game. We were facing 4, I think it was 4.
It was at least 4, yeah.
And I had an in-off on my first shot, and I threw it, and it just didn't curl enough. I needed a little less ice to get it to curl and make the roll. I think I ended up nosing it.
You did.
Which was like, oh boy, that's not great. And then
they nosed it because they were trying to roll in because they were like, well, we can't leave that same shot. They were trying to roll in, and he ended up nosing it.
Exactly. So he left the same shot. It was 2 rocks higher,
so thinner,
a lot thinner than it was the first time. And we just put the stick down where I thought like a few inches less than it was the time before, and I threw it good. And you guys managed it down the ice, a little on and off sweeping, and sure enough, boom, it hit and roll right into a pocket. So there was 2 right at the back of the button. So it was like a pocket right on the button is where it ended up. And there was nothing they could do with it. That gave us, at the time, I think a 2-point lead.
It did.
And we were able to hang on and win in the end. We won by 2, right?
Indeed.
Yeah. So, we sort of exchanged singles after that. And we were pretty happy with that. The win keeps us from going down to C in all likelihood. So,
unless we lose 20-0, I think we're guaranteed.
Yeah. As long as we don't default, we should be fine.
Yeah. So it was a incredible shot and a very interesting game. More rocks in play than we usually have, but very interesting. I'll just say, all right, I'll let you extol your virtues there on what was a tremendous shot. But on the first one, I was sort of down 3/4 of the way, not for any real reason. I was just sort of watching their shot. And then on your first one, I said, well, what about this in-off? And you and Jesse were looking at something else. And then you kind of shooed me away. It's like, no, we'll do this other one. I'm like, all right, fine. And then I go down and I'm watching you guys pick the shot that I suggested. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, we did.
But you shooed me away. I'm like, oh no, it'll be there late. Like, wait, what? Like,
yeah, well, the idea was, there was guards out in front. And so the thought was, oh, let's try to play the run back on the guard now because we can have that in off on the next one. And the more and more I thought about it, there was an opportunity where like, if I hit the guard wrong, it could like go into those stones in the side and remove them. And then I'd really have nothing. Yeah. So after some, sober reflection, we said, Sean, your idea is good.
Nobody said that. You just made the shot, or you threw the shot, but nobody was like, we apologize for shooing you off and dismissing you.
We'll allow this to be my apology.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Well, it was a fun game. And now it's a great part of the season where things are going on the ice for us. Hopefully for those of you who play, that you're having a good season yourselves. And now Season of Champions has started. So a lot of Vic and Russ and Kathy and maybe Joe, I still haven't seen any sort of confirmation on whether Joe's going to be there, and the Mooge too. With the 4 Nations hockey going on, Mooge can be full curling here. Has no Canadian responsibilities for a while, so very excited to get into the flow of another Scotties Tournament of Hearts. So enjoy the games, everybody. We'll be back with you again next week, but until then, keep those brooms on the ice and don't dump that intern.
Make the final.